a millionaire, known as much for his overflowing coffers as for his soft spot for the downtrodden, orchestrated a little street theater. August Marshall, a name whispered in both awe and affection throughout the city, purposefully fumbled his wallet plump with cash onto the bustling sidewalk. His target, a wisp of a homeless boy, a mere shadow clinging to the edges of affluence, who was pleading for spare change nearby. But what transpired next was far from the predictable scenario August's cynical wife had envisioned. Instead, the boy's reaction was so utterly unexpected, so profoundly moving, that the hardened millionaire found himself crumpled on the unforgiving pavement, weeping openly, his heart laid bare. Earlier that day, August had been cruising in his luxurious car, a gleaming testament to his success, the city unfolding outside like a movie reel. He paused at a red light, and almost immediately, a series of gentle taps resonated against the driver's side window. Surprised, August turned to see a homeless man, etched with the harsh lines of hardship and deprivation. The man's clothes were tattered and filthy, and his outstretched arm was frighteningly thin. He simply held out his hand, a silent, desperate plea. Without hesitation, August pressed the button, the window purring open. He retrieved a crisp $100 bill from his wallet and offered it to the man. A radiant smile blossomed across the young man's weary face, transforming his features. "Thank you, sir," he exclaimed, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much. You've saved my day. I can buy milk for my son." August returned the smile, offering a nod of understanding. As the light turned green, he accelerated, blending back into the urban current. But in the passenger seat, his wife, Pamela, emanated a palpable wave of disapproval. "What is it, Pamela?" he asked, glancing at her briefly. "This habit of yours, August, this constant need to shower everyone with money. When will you realize that people on the street are there because they choose to be? It's their fault." August inhaled deeply, his voice laced with patience. "My love, I truly don't believe anyone actively chooses to live on the street. You know what I mean? They made bad choices. They're reaping the consequences of their actions. You need to stop this nonsense of handing out cash to every beggar. Do you really think that man is going to buy milk? He'll buy booze, I guarantee it." She paused, gathering her thoughts, her tone sharpening. "And there's more. Have you seen the crime rates lately? What good is this armored glass if you roll down the window for every ragged person who approaches? I'm worried about our safety. I can just imagine someone sticking a gun in here. What will you do then, Mr. Generosity?" August remained calm, his voice unwavering. "I disagree. Criminals exist everywhere, Pamela, even in tailored suits. Just because someone is homeless doesn't automatically make them a criminal. Honesty isn't limited to a social class. I believe there are far more good-hearted people at the bottom than at the top." The car continued its journey, the debate simmering within its confines until they arrived at an exclusive handbag boutique. Pamela had ordered a new, outrageously expensive addition to her collection. As she stepped out of the car, her gaze swept across the sidewalk, landing on a curious sight. A young homeless boy, no older than 10, sitting on a piece of cardboard. He was wearing simple, grimy clothes and oversized sunglasses that slid down his small nose. But what truly captured Pamela's attention was the boy's nimble act of picking up a single coin that had fallen from a passerby's pocket. He pocketed it as if it were a priceless treasure. Pamela observed him intently, a spark of something akin to intrigue flickering within her. Minutes later, she emerged from the store, her new bag clutched possessively in her hand. Re-entering the car, she stopped August from starting the engine. "Wait, I want to do something." August raised his eyebrows, surprised. "Buying something else?" "No, there's nothing else here I want, but I have a proposition. A bet." He frowned, intrigued. "What kind of bet, Pamela?" She crossed her arms, her expression calculating. "This compulsion you have, this need to help everyone, especially strangers, bothers me. It's not that I hate helping, August, but it's dangerous. Since you're so convinced these beggars are honest, I propose a test." Pamela gestured subtly towards the end of the street. "See that street kid over there?" August followed her gaze. "Yes, I see him." She laid out her plan, her voice laced with certainty. "Take your wallet. Remove your ID, of course, but leave some cash inside. Then walk past him and drop it near the boy, just to see what he does." August chuckled softly, understanding her intentions. "You want to test his honesty? Is that it?" "Exactly," she declared triumphantly. "Or it could be another homeless person, if you prefer. If he returns the wallet, I will personally give him a generous sum. And I will never criticize your charitable habits again. But, if he runs off with the wallet, you will stop this street-level philanthropy. You can still donate to charities, but no more rolling down the window to hand out money. You'll finally understand that there's no such thing as an honest beggar." A tense silence filled the car until August gently reached out and took his wife's hand. "Deal," he said firmly. "But you're the one who's going to see that honesty exists in the most unexpected places. You're going to be proven wrong, Pamela." She raised an eyebrow skeptically. "I highly doubt it." Without another word, the millionaire turned his attention to the boy sitting a few yards away. He carefully removed his personal documents and credit cards from his leather wallet, leaving approximately $1,000 in folded bills. Then he prepared to exit the car. Pamela, arms crossed, couldn't resist a parting shot. "That kid is about to hit the jackpot. He'll steal all your money. But at least then you'll finally understand that these people are con artists. They're on the street because they deserve to be there." August didn't respond. He simply got out of the car, the wallet concealed in his hand, and walked towards the boy. As he approached, he feigned an accidental stumble, letting the wallet fall as he passed. Pamela, perched in the passenger seat, began recording the scene with her phone. The frame perfectly captured the boy, still wearing those oversized sunglasses, his legs crossed on the cardboard. She caught the moment he noticed the wallet, reached out, and snatched it with surprising speed. The boy shook his head, feigning confusion, and then furtively slipped his hand inside, feeling the thick wad of bills. He discreetly moved his hand to his pocket, stashing the contents. August walked slowly, hope flickering within him. He glanced back, but the boy remained motionless, his hand still outstretched to passersby. A strange weight settled in August's chest. He turned and returned to the car in silence. As soon as he got in, Pamela, wearing a triumphant smile, began. I told you, there's no honesty in those people. Just look. She turned the phone screen towards him and pressed play. The images clearly showed the wallet falling, the boy picking it up, rifling through it, noticing the money, and hiding it in his pocket. He robbed you. He saw the cash and hid the wallet. These beggars are worthless. That's why they live like that. You can't trust even a child. I told you, she repeated, her tone dripping with condescension. August watched the screen, then set the phone aside and sighed deeply, his disappointment evident. Yeah, maybe you're right, honey. Maybe I shouldn't trust people so much. Pamela took his hand, her voice softening. You can trust me. I always want what's best for you, my love. She then reached for the door handle. August, surprised, asked, Where are you going? No sugar-coating, she replied. I'm going to get your wallet back. There was $1,000 in there, remember? That kid doesn't deserve a dime. I'm taking it back. But August gripped her hand firmly, preventing her from leaving. No, leave it with him. We're not going to cause a scene over that money. Besides, I removed my documents and credit cards. There's nothing important in there. Leave it with the boy. Let's go. Pamela frowned, clearly annoyed, but didn't argue. She reclined in her seat, and the couple drove back to their mansion in silence, unaware that this seemingly simple test was about to profoundly alter their lives. But before we discover the impact of that fateful day, we need to rewind a few hours. Hours before that staged wallet drop, as the first slivers of sunlight kissed the horizon, Peter, the small homeless boy, lay shivering on his cold cardboard bed. He was jolted awake by a sudden, icy blast of water to the face. Coughing and sputtering, he sat up, disoriented. What's going on? He stammered, struggling to understand what had awakened him. A gruff, unsympathetic man, the owner of a nearby store, responded with brutal efficiency. This is what happens, you little wretch. If I find you sleeping in front of my store again, I'll toss you in the garbage truck. Now get out of here, you filthy brat. Peter frantically patted the ground, searching for his few possessions. His threadbare backpack, his sunglasses, and the old broomstick he used as a cane. Gathering his belongings, he said in a trembling voice, I'm sorry, sir. I can't see well. I didn't realize I was in front of your store. The man stepped closer, shouting, No excuses, kid. Move it. Disappear and don't come back. With trembling hands, Peter put on his sunglasses, gripped his broomstick, and hurried away, guided by sound, footsteps, and his memory of the sidewalk. He bumped into a well-dressed woman, who recoiled in disgust. Watch where you're going, filthy kid. Peter, in a barely audible voice, replied, Sorry, I can't see well. But the woman showed no compassion. Oh, go to hell, you lying brat, she retorted, moving away in disgust. Peter continued along the sidewalk, brushing against the walls of stores and houses, seeking shelter in the city's concrete jungle. He walked slowly, carefully, his broomstick leading the way. His feet ached, and his stomach rumbled in protest. He had barely eaten the day before and knew today would be no different. I hope I have a little more luck today, he whispered, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of hope. Finally, he found a quiet corner, away from storefronts, but close enough to pedestrian traffic. There, he settled onto his piece of cardboard. The concrete was warm from the sun, a welcome change from the cold of the night. People hurried past, oblivious to his presence. Peter held out his hand, his voice barely a whisper. Please, just a coin, please. For many, he was invisible. Peter was used to it. He had never known a home, never possessed a last name. The street was his only address. His first breath had been taken in a dumpster, where he had been abandoned as an infant. A homeless woman had found him that cold morning, shocked by the sight of the newborn. My God, who abandons a baby like this? She had exclaimed, cradling him in her arms. The woman soon understood the reason for the abandonment. The baby's eyes were covered with a milky film, obscuring his irises. Peter was blind. Nevertheless, she raised him with what little she had. She did everything possible to feed him, protect him, and keep him warm on the coldest nights. But life on the streets exacted its toll, and the woman died too soon. Peter was left alone. Other homeless individuals took him in for a while, but they all eventually disappeared, victims of hunger, illness, and the unforgiving cold. The street showed no mercy, but Peter endured, perhaps through sheer strength, perhaps by miracle. At 10 years old, he was a survivor, a boy who saw the world as shadows, but felt each rejection with agonizing clarity. That day, sitting on the cardboard, he had received only 3 10-cent coins. He knew it wouldn't buy even half a stale roll. Yet, he kept his hand outstretched, seeing only vague shapes pass before him. Please, a coin. I'm so hungry, he murmured again, his voice cracking. No one stopped. No one looked. The sun was high, and the sidewalk was scorching. Peter felt exhausted. People continued their lives, too preoccupied to notice the invisible boy. With his eyes hidden behind the sunglasses, he began to think aloud. How long is it going to be like this? Am I going to starve to death like my friends? God, why can't I see? If I could see even a little, I could work, do something. Should I just give up? A tear rolled down his face. He removed the sunglasses to wipe it away, but more tears followed, soaking his cheeks. The words poured out in pain, choked by sobs. Why, God? Why does it have to be like this? I wanted so much to see, to have a home, a family, something to eat. He cried silently, the city indifferent to his suffering. He cried not only from hunger, but for everything. For those who were gone, for those who treated him like trash, for all the nights when the cold felt stronger than hope. Then, he took a deep breath, replaced the sunglasses, and murmured with conviction. I have to stay strong. One day I'll get out of this. At that moment, a new sound cut through the noise of the city. Something dropping on the ground nearby, a heavier thud, muffled by the impact against the cement. Peter turned his face towards the sound. What was that? He said softly, reaching out with his hands. His fingers brushed against a rectangular object made of leather. This is a wallet, he murmured in amazement. Carefully, he opened the clasp and felt the contents. Folded papers? No, not just papers. Money. A lot of money. It's full of money. For a moment, his mind swirled with possibilities. A hot meal, a new blanket, a pair of shoes, new glasses that might ease the pain in his eyes. This could be a chance to live well for a few weeks, to eat real food, to sleep without shivering. But the thought vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Peter closed the wallet and instinctively slipped it into his pocket. Not to steal, but to protect. This money isn't mine. I need to find the owner. There must be a card, a document, a phone number. I'm gonna find the owner. I can't spend what isn't mine. Peter remained seated, the wallet carefully tucked away. He knew he couldn't simply stand up and ask if anyone had lost something. He'd been tricked before. He remembered the last time, when a man had claimed a bill Peter had found was his, only to snatch it from his hand and disappear into the crowd. No, I won't make that mistake again. It's better to stay here quietly, he murmured, keeping his hand out, waiting for the owner to return, searching for a lost wallet. If no one appeared, maybe a document inside would provide a clue. The hours passed slowly. The boy listened intently, trying to discern any sign of someone searching for something lost. Any key word. But no one approached, no one mentioned a wallet. As the sun began its descent, Peter decided to get up. He gathered his few belongings, his light backpack, the broomstick and his thoughts. He walked slowly, drawn by the delicious aromas emanating from nearby restaurants. His stomach growled in response. He stopped, reached into his pocket, and pulled out the few coins he had received. He counted them carefully, 30, 50, 80 cents, not even $1. Then, his hand touched the wallet in his other pocket. It was still there, heavy, with real bills inside. It would be enough to take just one bill and he could have a hot meal, rice, beans, meat, a decent dinner. But the thought was instantly dismissed. No, whoever lost this wallet must really need it. And I'm not a thief, he said firmly. Without hesitation, he walked to a humble street stand where an elderly man sold overripe fruit, spotted bananas and bruised apples. Peter approached and held out his coins. Could this buy a banana and an apple, sir? The vendor eyed him up and down without sympathy, grabbed a dark banana and a soft apple, and tossed them into Peter's hands. Here, now beat it before you scare off my other customers. Move. Peter held the fruit carefully. Okay, I'm going. Even so, he smiled, a faint, almost imperceptible smile, but sincere. Well, at least I won't sleep hungry. Maybe tomorrow I'll have better luck, he murmured. Moving away, he found a hidden spot between two walls. Alone, he sat and ate his fruit. It quieted his hunger, even if it didn't truly satisfy it. Afterward, he took out the wallet again. No strange movements around him, only silence broken by the distant sounds of the city. There must be some document here, he said, opening the wallet with his small, calloused hands. But the more he searched, the more he found only money. No ID, no social security card, no identification of any kind. Huh? Who carries this much money without any ID? Then, his fingers touched something different. A thicker piece of paper, rectangular and smooth. The card. Peter carefully ran his fingers over it, trying to discern what it might be. This piece of paper could be his only clue. He knew he wouldn't be able to read it himself. He pondered, reflected, and then made a decision. He returned to the fruit stand, waited for the crowd to thin, then approached cautiously. The man looked up. You again, kid? Peter, his heart racing, explained. I'm sorry. I know you asked me to leave, but I need a favor. You're the only person I know around here. He held out the card. Can you see if there's something written here? An address? A name? A phone number? The man took the card impatiently and read it with a frown. Well, it's a business card from a fancy place. August Marshall Law Firm. There's an address. 72 Flower Street, downtown. He paused, looking at Peter with curiosity. I've heard of that firm. It's one of the most renowned in the country. Where did you find this card? Peter didn't want complications. He just nodded and said, Ah, it was lying on the ground. Thank you very much, sir. He left quickly, the man's words echoing in his mind. August Marshall Law Firm, 72 Flower Street, downtown. Asterisk, if I go to that address, will I find the owner of the wallet? Asterisk, and so Peter decided he would try. He was, after all, not far from the center of town. It would be like a mission, and he didn't have many missions in life beyond survival. It'll be hard, but I can do it. Who knows? When I return the wallet, maybe the owner will give me a plate of food. That alone would be worth it. That cold night, Peter lay once more on his thin cardboard bed, curled up, hugging himself. The wind cut through his skin, and darkness was his only companion. He hugged the wallet as if guarding a treasure, not for its monetary value, but for the weight of responsibility it represented. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, in a luxurious mansion, dinner was served with silverware and porcelain plates. In the grand dining room lit by a shimmering chandelier, August was downcast. Martha, Pamela's mother, noticed his mood and asked with concern, What is it? August, you seem discouraged. Did something happen at the firm? But before the millionaire could answer, Pamela interrupted with disdain. No, Mom, nothing at the firm. August and I made a bet and he lost. Martha raised her eyebrows, curious. A bet? What kind of bet? Pamela then recounted the entire story, detailing the plan and how the homeless boy hadn't returned the wallet. At the end of the account, the lady who carried deep-rooted prejudice commented with conviction. Oh, so that's what it is, August. It was about time you realized those panhandlers and vagrants are worth nothing. August shook his head as if that pained him. I still think it was a one-off case. And also, who knows what that boy was going through not to return the wallet. You never know. But Pamela shut down the doubt at once. Don't even think about undoing the bet. Honey, I showed you those people aren't trustworthy. He just sighed and went back to eating in silence. After dinner, he went to the bedroom, isolating himself with his thoughts. Before following him, Pamela was alone with her mother, who reinforced her opinion. You're absolutely right, my daughter. Just like you changed, stop being soft about things, your husband needs to change too. We're the elite now and we can't mix with just anyone. A little later, Pamela came into the bedroom. August watched her and hesitated for a few seconds. Then he said in a firm, direct voice, "When did you become so cold, Pamela?" She crossed her arms and replied with odor, "I'm not cold. I'm just practical and I do the right things. I'm just not sweet with everyone anymore and I'm not going to help people who don't deserve it. But let's end the subject." "Let's," August answered tersely. They both lay down. Pamela fell asleep quickly. August, however, stayed with his eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The image of the boy wouldn't leave his mind. There was something about that kid, something that moved him deeply, and he still didn't understand why. Hours passed, while people in the mansion still slept under the comfort of wealth in another part of the city. Peter woke with the first sounds of morning. Horns, bus engines, hurried footsteps. He stretched with difficulty, gathered his few things and stood up, guided by his old broomstick. "Well, today I'm going downtown to see if I find the owner of this wallet. There's so much money in it. The person must need it," he said to himself. Determined, he walked slowly, stopping to ask directions from strangers. Most of the time he was ignored, but sometimes he got a quick curt pointer. "Go that way, kid," some said. Even so, he kept on. After a long time walking, slow steps, dodging obstacles, guided only by shadows and sounds, he finally reached downtown. There he asked for Flower Street number 72. He insisted, walked a little more, stumbled on uneven sidewalks, slipped off the curb, but after long minutes of effort, someone pointed to a tall glass high-rise with a huge sign at the entrance. That was the place. "This is it. The owner of the wallet must work here," Peter whispered breathless, then took a deep breath and bravely stepped inside the building. As soon as he crossed the door, dirty feet on the polished floor, rags contrasting with the elegant environment. A security guard noticed his presence and widened his eyes, shocked. "What's this filthy kid doing in here? He's gonna scare all the clients away," he snarled, already advancing. Peter barely had time to react. He felt strong arms grabbing him roughly. "Get out of here now," barked the guard. "Calm down. I just came to return something." The boy tried to explain, frightened. The man grumbled with contempt. "What would a filthy panhandler like you have to return? Get out now or I'll have to use force." Peter tried to resist, tried to explain, but the guard began to drag him out. In the confusion, his sunglasses slipped and fell to the floor. "Wait, my glasses. I need my glasses." The guard looked at the object on the floor and without hesitation stepped on it hard, shattering the lenses. It was exactly at that moment that August and Pamela arrived at the building's reception. Seeing the scene, Pamela stepped forward, bothered by the shouting. "What's going on here?" The guard, trying to maintain his posture, replied, "This street kid tried to break into the firm, surely to steal something, but I'm already getting him out, Miss Pamela." Pamela didn't think twice. "And what are you waiting for? Get this kid out of here." But before the man could act again, Peter, eyes already brimming, cried out in desperation. "No, wait, I wasn't going to steal anything. I just came to return something I found. I need my glasses. I can't leave without my glasses." Peter's voice echoed through the building's imposing lobby. It was like a cry that pierced the uncomfortable silence of that elegant environment. August, who had been watching the scene, paralyzed, awoke as if shocked. "Let the boy go," he ordered firmly. His deep voice reverberated in the space. Pamela tried to intervene, surprised at her husband's tone. "But honey," he turned to her with a serious look and answered, leaving no room for discussion. "Enough, Pamela. For God's sake. What could a boy like this do to anyone? We're in a law firm, one of the most renowned in the country. We should know better than to treat a person like this, whoever they are. Come on, let the kid go." "Security." The guard hesitated for a second, then reluctantly let Peter go. The boy, still frightened, knelt on the floor and began to feel desperately over the slick surface in search of something. His fingers soon found the remains of his shattered glasses right there. He held the pieces in trembling hands and tear-filled eyes. The pain came not only from the humiliation or the scare, but from losing a vital item for his survival. "My glasses broke to pieces. What am I going to do now?" he murmured between sobs, clutching the shards as if trying to put them back together with his hands. The guard, arms crossed, looked off to the side and muttered coldly, "No one told you to drop them. It wasn't my fault." August couldn't bear to see that he knelt beside the boy and spoke with genuine empathy. "I'll buy you a new pair of glasses." But before Peter could even react, Pamela cut in. "August, what did we agree on?" He didn't hesitate for a second. "It doesn't matter what we agreed on. His glasses broke inside our firm and we're going to cover the loss." At that moment, Peter lifted his face for the first time, turning toward August's voice. The millionaire, seeing him up close, froze. A chill ran through his body. He recognized the boy. It was him, the same kid from the day before. And now face to face he could clearly see the milky dull eyes covered by the white haze of blindness. Pamela recognized him too. Her expression shifted from shock to disbelief. "No, it can't be," she murmured, almost voiceless. It was then that Peter reached into his pocket and pulled out a wallet, holding it out toward August with humility. His voice thick with emotion. "I didn't want to steal anything here, sir. I swear. I just wanted to return this wallet. Someone dropped it near me yesterday, but since I can hardly see, only shadows. I didn't see who it was. I kept it, hoping someone would show up looking for it. When no one came, I tried to find some document. I found a card with the name and address of this firm. I asked a man to read it for me and came here to return it. This wallet belongs to someone here and it's full of money. I figured the person might be needing it. I swear I'm not a thief and I didn't want to cause any trouble. I just wanted to return it." August was paralyzed for a few seconds, looking at the wallet as if it were something sacred. He took it with trembling hands, and upon opening it, saw the money still there, each bill exactly as he had left it. Pamela also leaned in and looked inside. Her eyes widened. "It's not possible. I don't believe it," she murmured. August looked into the boy's eyes and voice breaking with emotion, said, "This wallet is mine. Thank you so much for finding it and holding on to it for me." Then he took all the bills out of the wallet and held them out to the boy with a grateful smile. "As a reward for your honesty." Peter, however, took a step back and shook his head. There's no need. There's really no need. I just wanted a plate of food if you could give me that. And I really wanted to fix my glasses. I can't have the sun hit my eyes directly. A cheap pair of glasses. If you can help me with that, I'll be forever grateful. For a moment, silence took over the room. And then, unexpectedly, Pamela stepped forward. Her expression, once harsh, seemed to soften. She looked at the boy with new eyes, perhaps for the first time truly seeing him. Leave it to me, honey. I'll personally buy him a very good pair of glasses and something to eat. August looked at his wife in surprise, but instead of replying with words, he just smiled. Not the smile of someone who'd won a bet, but the smile of someone who had witnessed something greater. His wife's heart beginning to change. Pamela sighed and turned to Peter. But before we buy anything or go out to eat, you need a bath, young man. Then she turned to the security guard still standing near the door and in a firm tone ordered, "Go buy some clothes for the boy. There's a store right next door." "Yes, ma'am," the man replied, quickly leaving. Shortly after, Peter was completely transformed. He'd bathed with Pamela's help and was now finishing putting on clean, new clothes. His hair was combed, his face clean, and for the first time in a long time he felt different. Not because of his eyes, but because of a sense of dignity. "There, much better," Pamela said, straightening the boy's collar. Peter smiled shyly. "I don't even know how to thank you." August, who was nearby, replied calmly, "No need to thank us." The brief exchange was interrupted by a loud, unexpected sound. A rumble. It was Peter's stomach. He put his hands over his belly, embarrassed. "Sorry, it's just that it's been a long time since I've had a real meal." August stepped closer and put a hand on the boy's shoulder tenderly. "Then you can eat whatever you want today." "Really?" the boy asked with a smile so spontaneous it even surprised him. It was a light smile full of hope, and he couldn't remember the last time anything like it had appeared on his face. Pamela, touching the boy's shoulder lightly, confirmed with a gentle, almost maternal gesture, "Yes, really, you can eat whatever you want." In that instant, August watched his wife with a mix of surprise and tenderness. That attitude, so far from the coldness she'd shown in recent years, moved him deeply. He drew closer to her, and with a slight gesture for Peter to wait a moment, led her to a more private corner of the firm. "It's so good to see you like this, kind, good to others. It's been a long time since I saw this, Pamela," he said with eyes brimming. Pamela took a deep breath, visibly moved. "Yeah, I was really harsh and I was proven wrong. You were right. There are good people everywhere, honey. I can't explain it. It's like this boy woke something up in me when I looked into his eyes when I saw his honesty." She choked on her own words, and August finished gently. "He's the age our son would be." The attorney closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of memory. She swallowed hard, unable to reply at once. And as if time rewound, she was transported mentally back 10 years. Back then, Pamela and August were young dreamers. They had just graduated from law school and opened their first office, small, modest, but full of ambition and love. They were inseparable partners in everything, in life, in plans, in dreams. Happiness seemed complete when Pamela became pregnant. The baby was deeply wanted by them both and seemed a symbol of a new phase. But the dream turned to tragedy and childbirth. Serious complications, a rush, desperation. And it was Martha, her mother, who gave her the news. "Where's my son, Mom? I want to see my son." Pamela begged through tears. Unfortunately, the baby didn't make it. "My love," Martha said with coldness. After that, something inside Pamela changed. She shut down. What had once been sweetness turned to rigidity. Generosity gave way to control. August, though devastated, tried to stay upright. Generous he suffered, but kept trying to see beauty in the world. Now back in the present, Pamela murmured, "I don't know, but something is telling me to help this boy, August." The attorney held her hand and answered firmly, "Then we will help him, my love." And they did. They took Peter to an eyewear store and bought him a new pair, nice with special protection. It wasn't just functional. It was quality. Far more than what he'd lost, worth more than the $1,000 he had returned the day before. "Thank you. Thank you so much," Peter said, beaming, trying on the new glasses. His joy was evident. After that, the couple took him to a restaurant. The boy, who had never set foot in a place like that, sat timidly, shoulders hunched, but soon relaxed. He savored each dish as if it were a king's banquet. While he ate, he told them his story. He said he had been found as a newborn in a dumpster, raised by homeless folks, but never truly had a family. One by one, those who helped him disappeared. Hunger, cold, disease, abandonment. "I don't even know how I'm still alive," he said simply with a painful smile. August and Pamela exchanged looks. The lump in their throats was the same. A respectful silence formed among them as they watched that boy endure with so little. After lunch, when they left the restaurant, Peter brought his hands together in front of him and thanked them sincerely. "Thank you for the clothes and for everything. Thank you so much." He began to step away, but then something happened. August and Pamela looked at each other as if reading one another's thoughts, and without needing to discuss it, they knew what to do. August took 2 steps forward and called out, "Wait, you can't go like this back to the streets. You're a child. You need to be in a safe place." Peter turned, hesitating. "I'll be fine. I'm used to it. My belly's full. I got new glasses, new clothes. I'll be fine." Pamela then stepped forward. "Peter, you need care, especially because of your vision. Why don't you stay at our house for a few days? We can find a doctor. See if there's any treatment. You can't go back to the streets like this." Peter felt his heartbeat faster. The idea of sleeping in a real bed, of having a blanket and hot food was everything he'd always wanted, but insecurity spoke louder. He lowered his head, not knowing how to react. "You've already done so much for me. I really don't want to be a bother." August crouched down, placing a firm, caring hand on his shoulder. "Peter, our house is big. You won't be a bother. In fact, it would even be good to have one more person there." The boy was silent for a moment. Doubt still hovered, but hope was beginning to take over. For the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, his fate was changing. The millionaire couple insisted with gentle words and welcoming looks, and as unlikely as it was, little Peter ended up accepting the invitation. Deep down he felt that for the first time someone saw him differently, not as a nuisance, not as a problem, but as someone who deserved care. And ironically, he sensed this without seeing a thing. That afternoon, the couple's car pulled up in front of the imposing mansion. Crossing the main entrance, Peter stayed silent. The sounds were different. The smells were soft, and the floor beneath his feet wasn't rough or cracked. It was as if he had entered another world. Arthur, Pamela's mother, was in the living room and seeing the door open, was left speechless at the scene. But who is this boy? She asked, shocked. Pamela stepped forward and answered calmly. He's the boy with the wallet, Mom. He returned everything. He was honest. We realized he needed help and thought it best to let him stay a few days here with us. He's also going to see an ophthalmologist to check his vision problem. Martha didn't say anything right away. She just nodded coolly, keeping her eyes fixed on the boy. Later, alone with her daughter, her real opinion came out. What is this madness? Bringing a homeless kid into the house, Pamela, she demanded indignantly. He's not just a homeless kid, Mom. He's a child who needs help. I hope your heart doesn't go hard again. You know very well that to stay on top, you have to be tough. I've always been clear about that. But there was something different in Martha's voice. She watched Peter intently, and when he took off his sunglasses for an instant, the woman froze. The boy's irises were white, a coloring she had seen before, exactly 10 years ago. In that instant, Martha was transported to the past. She was at the hospital. Pamela had just given birth. There was still hope, crying, life, but something strange happened. The doctor, after examining the baby, took him to a corner away from the mother. My son. Is everything okay with my son? I want to see my son. Pamela begged from the bed, distressed, tears in her eyes. Martha, realizing the doctor was taking too long to return, went to him, saw the baby, and froze. The newborn had a milky film over his eyes, both of them. The irises were almost entirely covered. She knew instantly the baby was blind. Without wasting time, she stared at the doctor and said firmly, "You're going back in there and telling her this baby died. You're going to say he didn't make it." He was a corrupt doctor who had already done dirty work for her. Money wouldn't be a problem. With a stuffed envelope in hand, he agreed. Minutes later, he returned to Pamela's room and said with a falsely sorrowful expression, "I'm sorry the baby didn't make it." August, who arrived shortly after, heard the same lie, and Martha pretended to console them both. She said she'd take care of everything, the funeral, the details, but there was no burial. The truth is that same night, Martha alone abandoned the baby in a dumpster. She was filled with hatred and selfishness. "You'll only be a burden. You'll ruin my daughter's life, her work, and August's future. They're on the rise, and I won't let you get in the way. I won't have a blind grandchild," she said coldly before leaving the newborn alone, crying among ripped bags and food scraps. But before continuing and learning the end of this moving story, go ahead and click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Do you think the government should care differently for people experiencing homelessness? Provide more assistance? Tell me which city you're watching from, too, and I'll mark your comment with a lovely heart. Now back to our story. After abandoning the baby in the trash, Martha molded her daughter with harsh words, hardening her heart. She turned Pamela's pain into coldness. And now, 10 years later, she looked at that boy sitting on her couch and recognized the eyes, the white irises, the face, the way. Could it be the same kid? No, it can't be, she murmured to herself. While Martha's mind was full of doubts, Pamela smiled innocently, not even imagining she might be in front of her own son, ripped from her arms by her mother and whom she believed was dead. Little by little, the attorney noticed her mother's sudden change. "What can't be, Mom? What's going on?" Martha forced a smile, emotionally retreating. "Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's okay. I just remembered I forgot to take my vitamins today, but it's all fine." She made a caring gesture toward Peter, but inside panic took over every inch of her body. She waited for nightfall, when everyone was asleep, and the boy finally rested in a warm, comfortable bed. She approached silently. With firm hands, she plucked a lock of the boy's hair. The next morning, with genetic material in hand, she went to a private lab. "I need you to run a DNA test using the sample and Pamela's and August's. I need this result yesterday." Meanwhile, the house was filled with a different energy. Pamela seemed ever closer to Peter. Her voice softened. She laughed at the boy's simple remarks. August, in turn, seemed lighter, smiling. It was as if the boy's presence had filled an old void. Peter was different, too. His face now carried hope. Although deep inside there was still fear, as happy as he was, he wondered how it would be when he went back to the streets. Will I be able to survive again in that world? He thought. August called him over. "Today we're going to the ophthalmologist." Pamela came closer, excited. "We made an appointment with one of the best doctors. Let's see what he says about your condition, Peter." Peter smiled, not knowing how to thank them. In the ophthalmologist's office, little Peter sat between August and Pamela, his fingers restless on his lap. The environment was new. Clean smells, muffled sounds, gentle voices. When the doctor entered and sat down in front of them, silence took over the room. With a technical but kind look, the specialist began to explain. "Peter has a condition called congenital cataracts." The boy turned his face toward the voice. Attentive, the doctor continued. "It's an opacity that forms in the eye's lens from birth. That whitish layer keeps light from entering properly, making vision cloudy or in more severe cases like his almost non-existent. Because he went many years without treatment, the situation got much worse." August held the boy's hand and the doctor concluded. "But there is treatment. There's a surgery to remove that white layer. I can't guarantee he'll see 100% like someone without any vision problems, but I can say with confidence he will be able to see. We don't yet know how much, but there's hope." It was as if the world stopped. Peter brought his hands to his mouth and, unable to contain himself, let tears run freely down his face. The crying was silent, loaded with an emotion words couldn't hold. After so many years believing he would live forever in darkness, a chance appeared. But then the doctor said what the little boy didn't want to hear. The price, the surgery, the exams, the medications. The whole process was expensive. Very expensive. Peter, still with a wet face, quickly retreated mentally. The heart that had raced with hope now felt the weight of reality. "I'll never be able to pay for that," he murmured, embarrassed. But before he could finish the sentence, August, After recounting the tale of the missing wallet and the homeless boy's supposed betrayal, Pamela's deep-seated prejudices surfaced with a biting remark. Oh, so that's the truth, August. It's about time you understood that those panhandlers and vagrants are utterly worthless. August, visibly pained, shook his head in disagreement. I still believe it was an isolated incident. Besides, we can't know what circumstances led the boy to keep the wallet. We just don't know. Pamela immediately dismissed his doubts, a stern edge to her voice. Don't even think about backing out of the bet, honey. I've proven to you that those people are inherently untrustworthy. August, defeated, merely sighed and resumed his meal in silence. Once dinner concluded, August retreated to the bedroom, seeking solace in his own thoughts. Before Pamela could follow, her mother cornered her, eager to reinforce her prejudiced views. You're absolutely right, my dear. Just as you've changed, shedding your former softness, your husband needs to do the same. We're now among the elite, and we can't afford to mingle with just anyone. A short while later, Pamela entered the bedroom. August watched her, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. He finally spoke, his voice firm and direct. When did you become so cold, Pamela? She crossed her arms, offering a curt reply. I'm not cold. I'm simply practical and I do what's right. I've just stopped being overly sentimental with everyone, and I refuse to help those who don't deserve it. Let's drop this subject. August answered with a weary tone. They lay down in silence. Pamela drifted off to sleep quickly, but August remained awake, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. The boy's image haunted his mind. There was something about him, something that stirred him deeply, and he couldn't quite understand why. As the hours ticked by, and the inhabitants of the mansion slumbered peacefully, cocooned in their wealth, Peter awoke to the city's harsh morning symphony. The cacophony of horns, bus engines, and hurried footsteps filled the air. He stretched his aching limbs with difficulty, gathered his few meager possessions, and stood up, relying on his trusty old broomstick to guide him. Well, he muttered to himself. Today I'm heading downtown to find the owner of this wallet. There's a fortune in it, and whoever lost it must be desperate. Driven by this determination, he slowly made his way through the streets, pausing frequently to ask strangers for directions. Most ignored him, but occasionally he received a curt, unhelpful pointer. Go that way, kid, someone would grumble. Despite the lack of assistance, he persisted. After what seemed like an eternity of walking, dodging obstacles and relying solely on shadows and sounds, he finally reached the city center. There, he began inquiring about Flower Street number 72. His voice raspy with exhaustion. He pressed on, stumbling over uneven sidewalks and nearly falling off the curb. But after countless minutes of relentless effort, a passerby pointed towards a towering glass skyscraper, its entrance adorned with a massive sign. That's the place, the stranger said, clearly impatient. This is it, Peter whispered breathlessly. The owner of the wallet must work here. He took a deep breath, summoning his courage, and stepped into the building. The moment he crossed the threshold, his dirty feet and tattered clothes stood in stark contrast to the polished floors and elegant surroundings. A security guard noticed his presence, his eyes widening in disbelief and disgust. What's this filthy kid doing in here? He snarled, already striding towards Peter. He's going to scare away all the clients. Peter barely had time to react. He felt strong arms grab him roughly, his meager frame no match for the guard's strength. Get out of here now, the guard barked. Calm down. I just came to return something. The boy stammered, fear creeping into his voice. The guard scoffed, his face contorted with contempt. What would a filthy panhandler like you have to return? Get out now or I'll be forced to use force. Peter tried to resist, desperately attempting to explain, but the guard began to drag him towards the exit. In the ensuing chaos, his precious sunglasses slipped from his face and fell to the floor. Wait, my glasses. I need my glasses, he cried, his voice cracking with desperation. The guard glanced at the fallen object, and without a moment's hesitation, stomped on them with all his might, shattering the lenses into countless pieces. It was at that precise moment that August and Pamela arrived at the building's reception area. Pamela, immediately annoyed by the commotion, stepped forward, her voice laced with irritation. What's going on here? The guard, attempting to regain his composure, replied. This street urchin tried to break into the firm, Miss Pamela. Surely to steal something, but I'm already taking him out. Without a second thought, Pamela responded sharply. And what are you waiting for? Get him out of here. But before the guard could act again, Peter, tears welling in his eyes, cried out in desperation. No, wait, I wasn't going to steal anything. I just came to return something I found. Please, I need my glasses. I can't leave without my glasses. Peter's voice echoed through the building's opulent lobby, his heartfelt plea piercing the uncomfortable silence. August, who had been observing the scene with growing unease, snapped out of his paralysis, his face hardening with resolve. Let the boy go, he commanded firmly, his deep voice resonating through the space. Pamela, taken aback by her husband's tone, tried to intervene. But, honey, August turned to her, his gaze serious and unwavering, leaving no room for argument. Enough, Pamela. For God's sake, what harm could a boy like this possibly do to anyone? We're in a law firm, one of the most renowned in the country. We should know better than to treat anyone like this, regardless of their appearance. Come on, let the kid go. The guard hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly released Peter. The boy, still trembling with fear, knelt on the floor, his fingers frantically searching the smooth surface for the remains of his glasses. He soon found the shattered pieces, clutching them in his trembling hands, his eyes filled with tears. The pain he felt was not only from the humiliation and fear he had just experienced, but also from the devastating loss of a vital tool for his survival. My glasses, they're broken to pieces, he sobbed, clutching the shards as if he could magically reassemble them. What am I going to do now? The guard, arms crossed, looked away, muttering coldly. No one told you to drop them. It's not my fault. August, unable to bear the sight of the boy's distress, knelt beside him, his voice filled with genuine empathy. I'll buy you a new pair of glasses. But before Peter could respond, Pamela interjected sharply. August, what did we agree on? He didn't hesitate for a second. It doesn't matter what we agreed on. His glasses broke inside our firm, and we're going to cover the loss. At that moment, Peter lifted his face for the first time, turning towards August's voice. The millionaire, seeing the boy up close, froze in shock. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He recognized him instantly. It was the same kid from the day before, and now, face to face, he could clearly see the milky, dull eyes, obscured by the telltale white haze of blindness. Pamela recognized him as well. Her expression shifted from shock to utter disbelief. No, it can't be, she murmured, her voice barely audible. It was then that Peter reached into his pocket and pulled out the wallet, holding it out towards August with humility. His voice thick with emotion. I didn't want to steal anything here, sir, I swear. I just wanted to return this wallet. Someone dropped it near me yesterday, but since I can hardly see only shadows, I didn't see who it was. I kept it, hoping someone would come back looking for it. When no one did, I tried to find some document. I found a card with the name and address of this firm. I asked a man to read it for me, and I came here to return it. This wallet belongs to someone here, and it's full of money. I figured the person might be needing it. I swear I'm not a thief, and I didn't want to cause any trouble. I just wanted to return it. August stood paralyzed for a few seconds, staring at the wallet as if it were a sacred object. He took it with trembling hands, and upon opening it, saw the money still there, each bill exactly as he had left it. Pamela leaned in and looked inside as well. Her eyes widened in astonishment. It's not possible. I don't believe it, she whispered. August looked into the boy's eyes, his voice breaking with emotion. This wallet is mine. Thank you so much for finding it and holding on to it for me. He then removed all the bills from the wallet and held them out to the boy, offering a grateful smile. Here, as a reward for your honesty. Peter, however, took a step back and shook his head. There's no need. There's really no need. I just wanted a plate of food, if you could give me that. And I really wanted to fix my glasses. I can't have the sun hitting my eyes directly. Just a cheap pair of glasses. If you can help me with that, I'll be forever grateful. For a moment, silence descended upon the room. And then, unexpectedly, Pamela stepped forward. Her expression, once harsh and cold, seemed to soften. She looked at the boy with newfound empathy, perhaps for the first time truly seeing him as a human being. Leave it to me, honey, she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. I'll personally buy him a very good pair of glasses and something to eat. August looked at his wife in surprise, but instead of responding with words, he simply smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone who had won a bet, but the smile of someone who had witnessed something profound, a sign that his wife's heart was beginning to change. Pamela sighed softly and turned to Peter. But before we buy anything or go out to eat, young man, you need a bath. She then turned to the security guard who was still standing near the door, and in a firm tone ordered, go buy some clothes for the boy. There's a store right next door. Yes, ma'am, the man replied, quickly hurrying away. Shortly after, Peter was completely transformed. He had taken a bath with Pamela's help and was now finishing putting on clean, new clothes. His hair was neatly combed, his face was clean, and for the first time in a long time he felt different. Not because of his eyes, but because of a newfound sense of dignity. There, much better, Pamela said, straightening the boy's collar. Peter smiled shyly. I don't even know how to thank you. August, who was standing nearby, replied calmly. No need to thank us. The brief exchange was interrupted by a loud, unexpected sound. A deep rumble that echoed through the room. It was Peter's stomach, protesting its emptiness. He instinctively placed his hands over his belly, his face flushed with embarrassment. Sorry, he mumbled. It's just that it's been a long time since I've had a real meal. August stepped closer and placed a tender hand on the boy's shoulder. Then you can eat whatever you want today. Really? The boy asked, his face lighting up with a spontaneous smile that even surprised him. It was a genuine, hopeful smile, and he couldn't remember the last time anything like it had graced his face. Pamela, lightly touching the boy's shoulder, confirmed with a gentle, almost maternal gesture. Yes, really, you can eat whatever you want. In that instant, August watched his wife with a mixture of surprise and deep tenderness. This unexpected display of kindness, so different from the coldness she had exhibited in recent years, moved him profoundly. He drew closer to her, and with a subtle gesture indicating that Peter should wait a moment, led her to a more private corner of the firm. It's so good to see you like this, kind and compassionate towards others. It's been a long time since I've seen this side of you, Pamela, he said, his eyes glistening with emotion. Pamela took a deep breath, visibly moved by his words. Yeah, I was wrong. I was really harsh and judgmental, and I was proven wrong. You were right. There are good people everywhere, honey. I can't explain it. It's like this boy woke something up inside me when I looked into his eyes, when I saw his honesty shining through. She choked on her words, overwhelmed by her emotions. August finished her thought gently. He's the age our son would be. The attorney closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the crushing weight of that memory. She swallowed hard, unable to respond immediately. It was as if time had rewound, transporting her mentally back 10 years. Back then, Pamela and August had been young dreamers, fresh out of law school, filled with ambition and love. They had opened their first office, a small, modest space, but brimming with hope and the promise of a bright future. August placed a reassuring hand on Peter's shoulder, his voice filled with emotion. We're going to take care of everything, Peter. Every single expense. Pamela nodded, tears welling in her eyes, deeply touched by the moment. It's the very least we can possibly do, after everything you've been through. Peter, his brow furrowed, looked back and forth between them, confusion clouding his vision. But why would you do something like this for me? August smiled warmly, a genuine and heartfelt expression. Because you deserve it, Peter. You're a good, honest boy with a heart of gold. You deserve so much more than the hand life has dealt you. All those lonely years you spent on the streets, struggling just to survive. Shortly thereafter, Pamela, finding herself alone with August, gently touched her husband's arm, her voice a soft but firm confession. I honestly thought those feelings were gone forever, that I'd never feel this way again. But today I feel like I can open my heart to a child again, that I can actually be a mother. I can't explain it, August, but it feels right. Meanwhile, across town, Martha trembled violently, her hands shaking as she clutched a thin envelope. Inside lay the confirmation she had dreaded more than anything, the results of the DNA test. No, it can't be true, Martha whispered, her voice barely audible, laced with disbelief and rising panic. Peter is actually Pamela and August's son. She began to pace back and forth across the room, a caged animal, restless and agitated. Her face was ashen, her breath coming in short, rapid gasps. I can't allow that little brat to ruin everything I've worked for, she hissed under her breath. August and Pamela already skipped work today, just to run him to doctor's appointments. Soon, that blind kid is going to drain the family's entire wealth, leaving nothing for anyone else. And if he stays here, living under this roof, sooner or later they'll find out what I did. All my secrets, all my carefully constructed lies. It will all come crashing down around me. I'll be finished. And then, as if some malevolent entity had seized control of her every thought, a wicked idea began to take root in her mind. I'm going to do what I should have done 10 years ago when I had the chance. I won't leave it to chance this time. I'm going to get rid of that wretched boy, once and for all. In a cold, calculating voice, she began to plan. She prepared a large, elaborate dinner for that night, filled with all their favorite dishes. And among the culinary creations, she included a special dessert. Individual chocolate mousse cups, sweet and inviting to the eye. Carefully, she separated one specific cup from the others, surreptitiously mixing in a deadly powder, a potent poison, placing it strategically on the far right-hand corner of the refrigerator shelf, with the clear and unambiguous intention that that particular cup would be Peter's last. But fate, it seemed, was no longer aligned with malice. When Peter, August, and Pamela returned from the doctor's appointment, they were practically radiating joy, their voices loud with excited chatter, their faces beaming with smiles. The news that Peter had a genuine chance of regaining his sight had filled them with an overwhelming sense of hope and anticipation. They burst through the front door, still laughing and commenting on the specific details the doctor had explained. After a few minutes, Peter, as was his habit, excused himself to use the bathroom. Guided by his memory and the familiar play of shadows in the house, he could see Pamela and August in the living room, still engaged in conversation with Martha. They were so profoundly moved by the events of the past few days that they decided to share something they hadn't yet revealed. Mom, we need to tell you something, Pamela began, her voice filled with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. We're thinking of adopting Peter, August finished, looking at Martha with a hopeful expression. Martha forced a smile, a tight, unnatural grimace that barely reached her eyes. Is that so? What a wonderful idea, she said, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. This house really does need a child's laughter to brighten things up around here. But inside, she seethed with resentment, her anger simmering just beneath the surface. This can't be happening, she thought to herself. Let's celebrate. Then, she said, trying to inject some genuine excitement into her voice. I prepared a wonderful dinner, with all your favorites. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to her, a subtle but significant change was taking place. When Peter emerged from the bathroom, he felt a sudden wave of thirst wash over him. He made his way to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator, searching for a bottle of cold water. That's when the sweet, intoxicating aroma of the dessert wafted towards him, piquing his curiosity. He reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing against the neatly lined up cups. He touched one, feeling a strong temptation, but his conscience spoke even louder. I can't, he murmured to himself. This isn't my house. I shouldn't be taking things without asking. Carefully, he placed the cup back in the refrigerator, but in doing so, without realizing it, he inadvertently switched the positions of the cups. The cup at the end of the row was no longer the same one Martha had so carefully prepared. Later, during dinner, the atmosphere was filled with laughter, lively conversation, and the sounds of happy eating. The night felt light and full of promise. Pamela and August were finally going to tell Peter about their decision to adopt him, to officially welcome him into their family. But before they could utter a single word, Martha stood up abruptly, a broad, unnerving smile plastered across her face, and cut them off. Wait, before anything else, you all absolutely must try the dessert. I made it with a lot of love, especially for tonight. She walked towards the refrigerator with determined steps, her heart pounding in her chest. She opened the door and pointed dramatically. This one, the one on the far right. This one is for that filthy little beggar. She grabbed the cup, her heart racing with a twisted sense of anticipation and malice. Asterisk, he's not my grandson. He's just a worthless, blind little nobody, and he'll finally get what he deserves. But what Martha didn't know was that fate had already intervened, shuffling the pieces of the game. And the cup she now held in her hand was not the same one she had poisoned. Peter accepted the dessert cup with both hands, his fingers tracing the smooth curve of the container. Even without being able to see clearly, he could smell the sweet, inviting aroma, a tantalizing scent that made his mouth water. He raised the spoon to his lips and began to eat with gusto, with unbridled pleasure, like someone who had never tasted anything so delicious in his life. It's wonderful, he said, his voice filled with genuine appreciation, a charming, almost childlike smile spreading across his face. Martha, a perverse glint of satisfaction shining in her eyes, responded with feigned sweetness. I'm so glad you like it, dear. I made it especially thinking of you. And with that sarcastic, veiled threat hanging in the air, she picked up her own dessert and began eating as well, watching Peter's every move with a morbid, almost obsessive attention. But then, something completely unexpected began to unfold. While Peter finished his dessert, smiling and showing no signs of distress, it was Martha who suddenly clutched at her chest, gasping for air. But what's happening? She murmured, her voice strained and confused, as she stumbled backwards. Her breathing became short and ragged. Her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Her skin turned pale and clammy, covered in a cold sweat. Her mouth began to salivate excessively, and her eyes slowly rolled back in her head. Her face flushed crimson, then quickly turned a deathly gray. Her entire body trembled violently, as if she were being subjected to an electric shock. Mom! Mom! What's happening to you? Pamela screamed, her voice filled with panic, as she rushed to support her mother. August also ran to his mother-in-law's side, desperately trying to understand what was happening. I'm calling an ambulance, he shouted, grabbing his phone, but it was already too late. Martha collapsed to the floor, her body convulsing uncontrollably. Foam bubbled from her mouth, her fingers clenched into tight fists, the veins in her neck bulging grotesquely. In her final moments of life, between agonizing, shallow breaths, she managed to utter one last, hateful phrase. Blind wretch! And then, silence fell like a heavy stone over them all. Shortly after, her lifeless body was taken away to the medical examiner's office. The sudden and unexpected nature of her death demanded answers, and those answers came swiftly. Tests revealed traces of potassium cyanide in her system. The confirmation sent Pamela reeling, plunging her into a state of profound shock and disbelief. Cyanide? Someone poisoned my mother? She murmured, her voice dazed and hollow. But who would ever do something like that to my mother? The next day, while preparing her mother's clothes for the funeral, fate intervened once again, delivering the final, devastating blow. In Martha's room, while opening a drawer in the wardrobe, Pamela stumbled upon a small, unlabeled jar. Inside was a white powder. At first glance, it looked like ordinary sugar or salt, but her intuition screamed otherwise. It was cyanide. Next to the jar there was an envelope. With trembling hands, Pamela tore it open. Inside was the result of a DNA test. The document listed two familiar names, Pamela and August Marshall, and the name of an unidentified child. The result, compatible. Pamela's entire body went cold, but the worst was yet to come. Beside the envelope lay an old, hard-covered notebook, a diary. Page by page, she read the chilling, detailed account of the woman she had once called mother. Everything was there, laid bare in cold, unfeeling prose. The elaborate lie about the hospital, the helpless, blind baby abandoned in a dumpster, the hefty bribe paid to the corrupt doctor, the meticulous plan to manipulate her, to mold her into a money-obsessed puppet, the icy, calculating way she had shaped her own daughter's life, and finally, the desperate, depraved plan to poison Peter. Discovering that he was the grandson she herself had discarded so callously, Pamela sank to her knees on the floor, the diary clutched tightly to her chest, sobbing uncontrollably like a heartbroken child. August, hearing her cries, rushed into the room and ran to her side. What happened? What's going on? She lifted her face, her eyes red and swollen with tears, and said in a choked, broken voice, My mother! She was a monster. She told him everything, reading aloud the damning entries in the diary, showing him the DNA test results. With each sentence, August grew paler and more ashen, until he finally murmured in shock. Dan, Peter, he's our son. Even with the horror and devastation filling their hearts, a flicker of light ignited within them, a spark of understanding that illuminated everything, that explained the inexplicable bond, the undeniable connection, the familiar look in his eyes, the overwhelming feeling that had enveloped them since the very first day they met him. Without wasting a single moment, they ran to Peter, who was sitting in the yard, happily playing with a brand new toy car. Pamela dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms tightly around him, followed closely by August. Peter, son, you are our son, she said, her voice cracking with emotion. The boy didn't understand at first, but little by little, the words began to resonate within him, carrying a weight greater than he could comprehend. I'm your son, he asked, his eyes welling up with tears. August nodded, his own tears flowing freely. Yes, my son, you always were. You were always meant to be. And even with the pain and anguish tearing at her heart, Pamela told him everything, sparing no detail, about all the terrible things Martha had done. Peter then remembered the moment in the kitchen, when he had put the cups back in the fridge. I switched the cups by accident, he murmured, swallowing hard. It was an accident. It was meant for me. Pamela squeezed him tightly in her arms. What matters is that you're alive, my son. And now no one will ever hurt you again. No one. We promise you. Pamela refused to attend her mother's funeral. She doesn't deserve my presence, she said firmly. She dug her own grave, and she can lie in it alone. Martha was buried alone in a nameless cemetery, with no candles, no farewells, and no flowers. But across town, a new life was just beginning. Peter, now under the loving care of his real parents, began intensive medical treatment. Surgery was scheduled, and weeks later, he was wheeled into the operating room, filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. When he woke up, the bright lights of the recovery room bothered him intensely. His eyes ached, but a soft cloth covered his face, shielding him from the harsh glare. Days later, the doctor removed the bandages. August and Pamela were standing at his side, holding their breath with anticipation. Peter blinked slowly, and then he saw it. Shapes, silhouettes, outlines. The world was still blurry and indistinct, but for the first time in his life it was a world he could look at directly. And there they were, the two of them. I can see you, he said, his voice filled with wonder and disbelief. I can see your faces. You're beautiful, he added, crying and laughing at the same time. August hugged him tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. My boy, he whispered, his voice choked with tears of joy. Pamela cupped his face in her hands and whispered, You are the greatest gift of our lives, Peter, the greatest gift we could ever ask for. Time passed and Peter never went hungry again, never slept on the cold ground again. He started school, made friends, played games, and smiled without reservation. He was loved unconditionally. Pamela, driven by a desire to atone for the sins of the past, founded a non-profit organization dedicated to helping children experiencing homelessness, offering them shelter, education, and, most importantly, love. Alongside August, she had more children, and they all grew up in a home filled with affection, truth, and unwavering support. Peter became the older brother, a role model and inspiration, and even without seeing perfectly, He began to see the world with a clarity and understanding that only those who have lived in darkness could truly comprehend. Comment, vision of love. So, I know you made it to the end of this video, and I'll mark your comment with a lovely heart. And if little Peter's story moved you, I have another one even more surprising to share with you. Just click the video that's appearing on your screen now and I'll tell you everything. A big kiss and see you in the next moving story of Mr. Hope.